Call the meeting of the Veterans, Military and Finance Affairs Division, Policy Division to order. Ms. Doyle, if you would take the roll, and then after that, I'll have you introduce the participants that are here. Ms. Doyle.
Absolutely. Chair Ecklund.
Present.
Vice Chair Zhang.
Present.
Representative Detmer.
Present.
Representative Becker-Finn. Representative Brand.
Present.
Representative Grossel.
Present.
Representative Heinrich.
Present.
Representative Miller. Representative Purcell.
Present.
Representative Becker-Finn. Representative Miller. We have 7 present, 2 excused for quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle. And if you would go on and introduce the folks that we have that are going to testify, so folks know who that is. Or you could call their names, and then they could so people could see their faces.
All right. Just testifiers or everybody on the list?
I think just testifiers.
All right. I'll see if I can decipher the difference. I have Leon Olferts.
Present.
Did you want to introduce who you're with?
I am former commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars for the Department of Minnesota, also a graduate of Veterans Sports.
Excellent. Oh. Pete Olpert.
Yeah, Orpit, thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm grateful to be here. I'm going to be testifying briefly on behalf of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, as well as on behalf of myself and the Washington County Attorney's Office. Just by way of background, I served in Southeast Asia with the United States Marine Corps in the early 70s. I then spent a good deal of time in the U.S. Army Reserve. That's just by way of background. Thank you.
Thomas Johnson. Oh, Tommy, you are muted.
Thank you. Chair Ecklund, committee members, I'm Tommy Johnson. I'm the legislative officer for the Department of Minnesota Veterans of Foreign Wars. I also serve on the VFW National Legislative Committee.
Hey, Jim, my list is skipping around a little bit. Is there other testifiers you're noticing?
Bill Ward, if you could introduce yourself.
Certainly. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Bill Ward. I'm the State Public Defender for Minnesota. For those of you who do not know, we have a statewide public defender delivery system, so I oversee the agency that represents nearly 90% of all individuals charged with crimes in the state of Minnesota.
And Ben Johnson.
Thank you. Ben Johnson, Legislative Director for the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm going to leave the video off between my wife and I both working from home. The connection gets a little staticky, so I'll just thank you for your time, and I look forward to participating.
And we also have listed Marko Milosevic, but he is not signed in yet. He may show up when he comes to testify, and he can introduce himself at that time.
Mr. Chair, you are muted.
I'm talking. Can you read my lips? There we go. Thank you, Mr. Gelman and Ms. Doyle, and for all the people that have taken part of this hearing today. We're having this hearing today to take comments and information on the recently introduced House File 31, which is the exact bill that was House File 998, second engrossment, that was on the General Register. And with that, we want to clarify some misinformation that has been circulating about the bill. Is the reason for calling this hearing today. And with that, I will turn it over to Vice Chair Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And according to House Rule 1001, members and the public is reminded that this is a hearing, and we're not going to be taking actions on this bill. And so, Chair Ecklund, to your bill.
Thank you, Chair Zhang, for stating what I missed on our clearly annotated agenda prior to this. But anyway, so thank you, members. The language before you, the Veterans Restorative Justice Act, provides a framework for Minnesota courts on sentencing a justice-involved veteran, which will ensure treatment for service-related disorders that lead to a criminal offense, while allowing the veteran the opportunity to fully reintegrate with the community without a record of conviction. It is not a free ride, as the veteran defendant will be required to submit to whatever rehabilitative efforts the court deems necessary to protect public safety. The language was developed through an 18-month collaboration of key Minnesota veterans criminal justice stakeholders. It adapts and improves on the best practices from Minnesota's and other state veterans courts and veteran sentencing statutes, including California Penal Code 1170.9, Texas Government Code Chapter 124, and the existing drug sentencing options of Minnesota Statute 152.18. And members, the DFL House Caucus is in full support of this language. And with me today, I have a number of testifiers, and I would like to turn it over to them for the remainder of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the next witness to speak is Mr. Ben Johnson. Mr. Johnson, if you can state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Zhang, Representative Ecklund, members of the committee. My name is Ben Johnson. I'm the Legislative Director for the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. Here speaking on behalf of the Veterans Restorative Justice Act. This was an agency initiative, both during the regular session 2020, as well as when it was reintroduced during the second special session. As an agency initiative, this bill has the full endorsement and support of Governor Walz, Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, and our partners and stakeholders are well aware of what we are trying to accomplish with this particular piece of legislation. We've got some testifiers following me who are much better prepared to speak about the nuance of how it would work statewide, but I did want to highlight a couple of key points. To begin with, I think I can see no better demonstration of Governor Walz's message of one Minnesota. The Veterans Restorative Justice Act would allow all counties and all district courts in the state of Minnesota to be unified in how they address issues facing veterans who have returned from their service, suffering from things such as PTSD, military sexual trauma, or chemical or mental health issues. It allows a veteran in Roseau to be treated the same as a veteran in Roseville. It allows a veteran who has served and returned home to Minnesota in a county that does not currently have an existing veterans treatment court to apply for an opportunity to be treated with the same support and referrals that a veteran who returns to Minnesota to a county or district that does have an existing veterans treatment court. To be clear, the Veterans Restorative Justice Act does not create veterans treatment courts in all counties throughout the state of Minnesota. It simply provides the guidelines by which a veteran could seek to receive rehabilitation and assistance and avoid a criminal conviction. At the launch of the 3rd Judicial District Veterans Treatment Court last fall, September of 2019, Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court, Lori Gilday, said that she believes that the Minnesota Judicial Branch should be committed to expanding treatment court access throughout the state. As we understand and expand treatment courts, we're asking communities to think innovatively and thoughtfully about how best to ensure treatment courts are sustainable. There was some discussion about whether or not there was a cost associated with the creation of the Veterans Restorative Justice Act and the implementation of this program statewide. And in fact, the fiscal note that was developed showed neutral impacts to the courts, neutral impacts to the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, and actually showed a significant savings to the Department of Corrections. So our understanding of the bill as it is drafted is that will save money. And we think it demonstrates a commitment to keeping with Chief Justice Gilday's comments that we need to figure out ways to find that these are sustainable. Furthermore, the expansion of these guidelines encourages district courts to work with county veteran service officers and the federal VA to secure services for veterans that already exist and that these veterans are eligible for. So this is by the best method to connect courts, veterans, and existing resources to get them the help that they need to bring them all the way home. I believe we'll leave questions for the end. I know that those following me will have much more intelligent comments on the actual application of this statewide law, but I did want to note that both the Chief Justice of the United States, of the Minnesota Supreme Court, and the governor support the concept of veterans treatment courts, and we think that this is the best way to make sure that all veterans throughout the entire state of Minnesota have access to this kind of programming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Members, if you want to note that we will be holding off questions after all of the witnesses have testified. So next here I have on the agenda is Mr. Orput. If you can state your name for the record and proceed.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Zhang, Chair Ecklund, and members of the committee. I'm Pete Orput, O-R-P-U-T. I'm currently the Washington County Attorney, where I've served since 2011. Prior to 2011, I worked in the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, their violent crime section. And what's important about that is in about the mid-2000s, I was seeing a significant uptick in veterans coming into Hennepin Court. Many of them were my files. And what the common thread was, these were all returning combat veterans who had significant mental health issues and wounds. And while I'm there as a prosecutor, I learned in about 2008 or 9 that Erie County, New York had set up their very first veterans court. I spoke with my prosecutor friends out there. I then visited the court. I became a true believer very quickly. I came back to Minnesota and started working with folks like Brock Hunter, who I found incredibly instrumental in getting our veterans courts here in Minnesota. Brock and I and several others worked. We put together a pilot program in Hennepin County in 2010. It showed great success. I then became the Washington County Attorney, and the first thing I did in office was to invite Brock Hunter and other veterans to come in and speak with our district courts, and I set up Washington County's first veterans court. And I want to thank Representative Detmer. He's taken a strong interest in our court here in Washington County, and I'm deeply flattered and grateful for that. We've been doing a veterans justice outreach since 2011, and I have a number of anecdotes that demonstrate this is absolutely the right thing to do. Now, the problem is I can speak and teach around the state, but people still want to do it the way they want to do it, and it's required a uniform statute, so we make sure we leave none of these veterans behind. But I just want to sum up by saying there's so much misinformation, frustrating for me. But let me just put the positives out there. This program that I have and the one that'll be incorporated in this bill statewide has saved the citizens of Washington County significant money. It has shown remarkable success in rehabilitating veterans
You were not.
being pretty hopeless when they came in, and that goes directly toward public safety. I want my public to be safe, and I want to be able to treat those who might be finding themselves acting out their pain and causing crime. Those we've put through our program, we literally never see them again except we ask them to come back and volunteer as mentors. So it is a great public safety program. It saves money, and I'm shocked and hurt that it doesn't have full bipartisan support. I just am. But thank you for allowing me to speak. Since there's applause, Mr. Chair, if I might add just a couple of things, just briefly.
Go ahead, Mr. Orpett. We might have lost Representative Zhang, so go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I forgot to mention that I'm a member of the board of directors of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association. That organization is in full support of this bill. There were drafts that required our input, and Ryan Elson, Brock Hunter addressed all our concerns. We are now in full support. Moreover, I'm on the board of directors of the National District Attorneys Association and vice chair of their Veterans Committee. And Brock Hunter came out and presented a Veterans Court PowerPoint that was highly persuasive at the national level. And the board of the NDAA asked that I come back with a bill so that many of the other states can proceed with those same efforts and hopefully work on it on the federal end. Thank you for allowing me to speak with additional.
Thank you, Mr. Orpett. Next on the agenda is Bill Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. As I said earlier, I'm Bill Ward. I'm the State Public Defender for Minnesota. At the time that Mr. Orpett put together the Veterans Court in Hennepin County, I was the Chief Public Defender of Hennepin County. Mr. Orpett worked with Brock Hunter and some others to organize this effort in order to establish a Veterans Court. And ultimately, I was brought on board. It wasn't so much to give my okay, it was to inform me as to what they were trying to accomplish. And frankly, I was very impressed. I will tell you outright, I am not a veteran. But my goals in this position and as a public defender is fair treatment for all of our clients throughout the state. But I also recognize, the realities of this world right now and how many veterans are coming back and returning from many tours of duty. And it didn't take a whole lot of convincing by Mr. Orpett and others for why it was important to look at veterans and underlying reasons as to why they got into the criminal court system. And there were numerous reasons, and which are enumerated, throughout the literature. Ultimately, in my support in Hennepin County, the court went forward, and it was a success. But I will tell you that it became unsuccessful over time, and it was after Mr. Orpett left Hennepin County that it changed. It became a pre-adjudication to a post-adjudication court. And once that happened, due to our limited resources, I pulled us out of Veterans Court. I'm not going to sit here and preach to you guys about how we are underfunded. But once cases are resolved, I don't have the staffing to maintain Veterans Court or other treatment courts post-disposition. So when I got my job here 6 years ago as a state public defender, I looked at the disparate ways that veterans courts were being implemented throughout the state, and I was more than discouraged. I was very disappointed. Ultimately, it became form over function in so many of these areas. It was about having a veterans court, but it really wasn't reaching and meeting the needs for the vets really needed. It wasn't giving them that second chance, which is why I believe veterans court should have been established in the first place, because of the work that they've not only done on behalf of our country, but the sacrifices they've made. Ultimately, there are a lot of people upset with me for pulling, but I stood firm on that. And at some point, Mr. Hunter and others asked me to be a part of this committee that Mr. Orpett referred to earlier. And I will tell you, I was reluctant. And my reasons were for the same things I said earlier, in that disparate treatment throughout the state, and this idea of having to set up Veterans Court. What came over, and people are saying a year and a half, it seems like forever this committee was meeting and discussing the various language of this bill. But ultimately, we hammered out what I firmly believe is an incredibly fair and just bill that should be supported by all of you. As Mr. Johnson said earlier, what I insisted on was that we did not need to establish veterans court throughout the state. What I wanted was fair treatment, whether you were in Roseau, Hennepin, Steele County, you know, or Fairmount, right? I wanted the same access to this ability to examine the underlying reasons and provide people the opportunity to have that second chance. And that's what this bill does. The, you know, fair treatment, no matter where you're charged, allows people and allows the court to ask and wonder, you know, why are you here? Our goal is to keep people from coming into the system in the first place. Once they get here, it's important to be client-centered and understand why. And with veterans, I will tell you, I believe it is a different analysis that we need to assess as to how folks got here. And if the underlying reasons are as a result of their service, this bill will help not only treat, but give folks a second chance if they are successful. So it is about treatment, it is about court access, it is about not establishing 87 different veterans courts, but it is providing the opportunity for people to have a second chance should they deserve it. And again, as many people said at the outset, it is not a, you know, quote unquote, get out of jail card free. It is all about, can a person comply with the conditions of probation? Can they do the treatment? Have they successfully completed the treatment? Have they stayed out of trouble during the probationary period? If all of those things are true, it is true that indeed the stay of adjudication in effect would be, I should say, would be in effect and the case would be dismissed. But that's a lot of hurdles. And please understand, this is not some easy task. So many of our folks, due to their circumstances, or sometimes what I say are set up for failure. So in order to succeed, individuals who are sentenced under this particular bill have to accomplish a lot to get themselves back into a place where, as Mr. Orpett said, that they are a part of citizens and it is maintaining public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Next, we have Mr. Lee Olfert. Please put your name for the record.
My name is Leon Olferts. I am a past state commander for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I also served as a Marine in Vietnam in 1969. Upon my return from Vietnam, I, like most of my fellow veterans, were pretty troubled. I went through the usual symptoms. I was married at the time, was divorced within a year and a half of my return. I had the nighttime problems, all kinds of issues of anger and what have you. I carried that most of my life, but I found that alcohol was a numbing agent, and as I used it, I sought relief and I got relief, I thought. I accumulated, of course, with that a number of DWIs along the way. I just didn't know where to go or what to do. In 2004, due to an incident, I was sentenced to a treatment program, and honestly, the treatment program that I went through with all of the others was nothing more than, in my words, a joke. And before finishing, I couldn't wait to have a margarita when I was done. So that didn't work, and I didn't have a lot of faith in treatment programs. However, in 2012, an incident happened that I am embarrassed to say. I was in a minor traffic accident. When the police arrived, they tested me, and I blew a .21, and my life changed forever at that point. I went through the court system to start with. I realized that with my past, I was probably headed for some hard time, but certainly it was not going to be an easy time. I petitioned to be transferred to the Veterans Court, and I thought, well, you know, maybe I'll get a little easier sentence. Maybe this will be a little easier. I soon found out the first day I was there that it was not going to be done my way. It was going to be done their way, but they were there to help. I was assigned a probation officer. I was assigned a judge. I was assigned a treatment counselor at the VA. I was required for the next year to attend that court. It was an eye-opening experience talking to other veterans, but the most important thing, I was assigned to the treatment program at the VA hospital. At that time, I was with other veterans, and for the first time in almost 50 years, I found some peace and some relief. I found how to deal with my problems. Since that time, I'm happy to say I am 8 years sober. I graduated after 1 year from Veterans Court. And without that help, I can assure you I would not be here today. My problems were so great, I really didn't care so much about living anymore. And I knew that I needed help. I just didn't know how to get it. Veterans Court showed me the way. And because of that, I am here today. I am happy. My marriage is being restored. I have a good life. That would not have happened without the Veterans Court. Minnesota has a long history of helping those that need help. Certainly, we should be able to reach out to those veterans that are crying for help but don't know where to go and help them to get the help they need. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Holford. Next on the agenda is Mr. Tommy Johnson. Please take your name to the record and proceed.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for allowing me to be here. Again, my name is Tommy Johnson. I'm the legislative officer for the Veterans of Foreign Wars in the state of Minnesota. I'm also a member of the VFW National Legislative Committee. A VFW national legislative priority is to expand veteran courts into rural America, which in Minnesota is specifically greater Minnesota, where we don't have a lot of veteran courts. You've heard testimony about what this bill will do on its own. It doesn't cost the state money. There's no implementation. It goes along with the national VFW priority that the justice a veteran receives should not be dependent upon a county line. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about what's been going on at the national level on this. HR 886 was originally introduced in January of 2019, the same time that the Veterans Restorative Justice Act was introduced in the state legislature. It passed on July 20th. The reconciliation between the Senate version and the House version passed the House on July 20th. And last Tuesday was sent to President Trump's desk, where he is fully expected to sign it because it passed both houses or both chambers in Washington unanimously. What this bill will do, HR 886, and I'd like to thank Mr. Geldman for linking this document on the committee webpage, is provide technical assistance and financial assistance for rural areas or greater Minnesota areas that want grants and want to stand up their own veteran courts. The devil is always in the details. What I can tell you from following this bill is that it is anticipated that in order to be eligible for a federal grant and the federal technical assistance for an area to set up a full-fledged veterans court, a bill like this has to be in place. So we need to pass this bill as is, regardless of what the feds are doing. But when you add to that, if this bill doesn't pass, we are putting our rural areas, they may not be able to get the financial assistance that they require to set one up. It's vitally important. It's not only a legislative priority of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, it's also a national legislative priority of the disabled American veterans and the American Legion. It is fully supported by all 9 veteran service organizations comprised of the Commander's Task Force. We need to get this bill done. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We hold up the topic after Secretary of Justice, Mr. Apologize for butchering the names that
I know we're having some connectivity problems with the chair's audio. Is Mr. Milosevic on our call? Apparently not.
If I hear Pete Orbit here. While we were trying to make efforts to get a hold of Mr. Milosevic, I texted Brock Hunter, and he and others have been trying diligently. We're disappointed because they did a practice run last night and he was ready to do the Zoom, but apparently right now, we're not sure where he is. In fact, some of us are mildly concerned. Thank
you. Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why don't we go to questions, and if Mr. Milosevic gets on the line, we can have it take his testimony.
And the first question we have, I see, is Representative Detmer has a question.
Okay. I'm here. Yes. I think one thing has been made clear, both Ben Johnson and I think in some of the other statements, and Leon, you had a great testimony there on your situation and what you've been able to accomplish through the Veterans Court system. And I think we need to make clear, because I've been getting a lot of questions about this piece of legislation. And I need to point out to them, this is not Veterans Courts legislation. We need to talk about it. It's separate from Veterans Courts. People out there think that it hasn't passed, it hasn't gotten to the House floor. How can we not do that on Veterans Courts? This is not a Veterans Courts bill. And I think I just need to make that clear. You know, I'm a co-author of the bill, not only during the regular session, but now on House File 31, I'm a co-author. So, but there are a lot of questions that have been brought forward. I know Chair Ecklund, you presented the bill in public safety, and we thought it was going to be a quick in and out. I know I was on the radio with Tom Lyons, and we thought you'd be back. Well, I got more airtime on the radio. But with that said, there are several questions, and probably later I'll let other people speak too, but there are questions that we need to bring up, that this is not Veterans Courts. And that's not to say that it's not a good program. I'm not saying that, but we need to separate the two. And the information from the United States, from the Congress, that deals with Veterans Courts, okay? So we can't confuse the two. And as you know, I support Veterans Courts. I sat in on graduations in Hennepin County, and also I sat in on a graduation in Washington County. And Pete, I know we sat one time for coffee, and you asked me what my thoughts were about the Veterans Courts. And I think that was early in your career with Washington County. I said, yeah, go for it. It's something that we need to be doing. So with that, that's my first comments, and I'll have some questions later too.
Mr. Chair, this is Bill Ward. Can I address what the representative just said?
Is that Mr. Ward?
Yes. And I think that's a great point to be made. And thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ben Johnson also made the same point. And I want to stress this. I agree that some veterans courts are outstanding. Not all of them in the state are. And I will probably be ostracized for saying that, but not all of them are. And the importance of this bill, which was imperative to me, and I know others who are a part of this committee, was to provide the same resources to everyone throughout the state, even if they don't have a veterans court. It takes money to establish veterans court. It takes a tremendous amount of time, both for the stakeholders, including my office and the bench. I am convinced that we do not have to have a veterans court to have success if this bill is enacted. The reason for this bill is to provide the courts a tool to implement when they are dealing with a veteran, no matter what part of the state or what county line they reside in. That's why this bill is so important. And what happens is the resources from the Veterans Affairs come into play. The parties from the Department of Veterans Affairs come into play. The court recognizes that the person, the individual before him or her, are veterans. The reason they're there is based upon either traumatic injury or trauma or sexual assault, whatever those reasons might be, and to use the appropriate resources to deal with the underlying issues. Too many courts throughout the state use the same old approach. Persons before the court, here's some counseling, here's some resources, go out there and do the best you can. What this bill does is provide the court with the tool to get the players involved, to get the resources available to them, even if they weren't available at the county level. They're available through the Department of Veterans Affairs. That's the purpose for this bill. So yes, you are right. It is not establishing a veterans court, but I am literally positive that if people change their lens and mindset, recognize the person before them as a veteran, we need to treat the underlying issues as to why the vet is in this courtroom. We can use those existing people and resources to treat that vet through this bill and have a success and hopefully keep them from coming back into the system again.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Chair Zhang, I'm going to take over here. I think you're having a little bit of a connectivity problem, so I'll call the questions now if that's okay with you and the rest of the committee. Next hand I see is Representative Grossel.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. It looks like I blocked myself out there too. You know, I had some questions before, and I guess I still have those questions. I asked about the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs and the funding for these rural areas. I heard somebody mention grants. Do we have somebody to testify as to will there be funding out there for these rural areas? I mean, I keep hearing Roseau to Roseville, but is there going to be funding to help these rural areas to make sure that they have the resources to do these things? And you know, I have a few more questions as well. You know, everybody wants to help our veterans. Everybody in this committee wants to help our veterans, and I want to make sure that this is done right. There's several questions that I have as far as domestic violence. Where does the domestic violence community stand on this as far as supporting, and do we have somebody to testify to that or a letter of support? The courts, were the courts involved in the drafting of this bill, because they're going to be the ones that have to execute all of this stuff, you know? But I'll ask that first one. and whoever could answer it, do you have any anyone as far as the the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs to answer the question as far as resources and funding goes? Pete, if you push the raise your hand button, you can get noticed.
Thank you. Sorry, I just do it that way. If I might, Mr. Chair. Yes, sir.
Mr. Orpett.
Thank you. I can address a part of your concerns, Representative Grossel. The first part is, I don't know about the grant stuff. I would recommend Tommy Johnson talk about that. I heard him, he said, if we pass this bill, that makes us far more eligible for federal funds. But along those lines, I just want to say this. I asked for not one nickel, both in Hennepin and in Washington County. I never asked anybody for money. What I asked them for is a commitment to take a certain amount of time out of their busy schedule and commit it to hearing these cases on veterans. That's all it required. And I've been so far doing it without ever asking the judiciary or anybody else for a nickel. And with this bill, I don't think it would require money. It requires a mindset that instead of using the same old tools us prosecutors use, which is typically a bucket of hammers, we now drop the adversarial and work toward restoring these vets. And when we do that, I can assure you we've had great success. Now, with respect to domestic assault, when Brock and I and Bill Ward and a number of us worked on the Hennepin County veterans response, we met with the Minnesota Coalition of Battered Women. I personally met with legal counsel from Tubman. I can share with you anecdotally that when I made my presentation on the model I was putting in Washington County, and I asked for the domestic assault victims' support, counsel herself teared up and said her husband was a veteran who had had major struggles. So obviously they were very supportive and still are. And we work with Tubman hand in hand, and we always get victim impact in the domestics. And I can share with you anecdotally, Representative Grossel, the biggest advocates for the veteran are their partners, their spouses. They're the ones saying, I want my old husband back. I want my old boyfriend or girlfriend back, the way they were before they went into service. And they're the ones that are always supportive. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orpett. And Mr. Johnson from MDVA has some comments on the grants. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Ecklund, members. Representative Grossel, to your question, my reference to access to this kind of equality in sentencing and procedure, Roseau to Roseville, the reality is that the courts exist and are funded, although arguably, as Mr. Ward has indicated, underfunded in a lot of ways. They exist and have programs in place whereby judges know what the law is and know how to implement diversion programs in sentencing. The way that this bill would work is that a veteran who claims a connection between his service or her service and that the underlying issues that might have resulted from that service and their criminal act that they've been charged for, they show the court that this exists. Once it's established that there is a nexus there, the courts, the prosecutors, and the public defenders who already exist in these jurisdictions would then develop a plan in coordination with the federal VA through the local county veteran service officer. It's not unreasonable to think that the existing resources that are available for veterans, whether or not they're facing criminal charges, should be available in every corner of the state. We've got an amazing network of county veteran service officers, and what this bill would do in the language that was developed is it coordinates a comprehensive response between the CVSO accessing federal VA funding that already exists. There are existing treatment programs and resources for veterans. I was included in the team helping to develop the language. We also had representatives from the VA's, I forget their his technical term, but it was basically a VA judicial assistance position. We also had veteran treatment court judges participating in the development of this, understanding that there are existing resources across the state, and that what we would be doing is utilizing those existing resources to help veterans in a different way. With regards to the federal grant, this is to...
I'm sorry. Oops.
So,
I don't know if everybody else saw what I saw.
Representative Grossel. Okay, please continue.
My apologies. Somebody changed your...
I hope it wasn't me. So to your question, and to Chair Detmer's comment about this Veterans Treatment Court Coordination Act at the federal level, it's not a given, but the federal statutory language, for our perspective, is that it's broad enough that passage of the Veterans Restorative Justice Act, even counties without a formal Veterans Treatment Court, could potentially qualify for that federal training, technical assistance, and grant funding. So the law in its current form, it's broad enough that it directs DOJ to determine if a program qualifies. So in looking at the language, we think it's reasonable to interpret that the Attorney General could allow programs that don't have a formal Veterans Treatment Court to access the training and support from the Department of Justice and the federal VA. If they don't, this law also permits those jurisdictions that are interested in setting up a formal Veterans Treatment Court access to the funding. The biggest challenge that we see with this bill is the funding. They had been looking at about $5 billion. That had been the number that was targeted. But at this point, all we could see was allocations of about 20 million. So this isn't the panacea. It's not the thing that's going to solve all of the problems. But to your question, sir, it really is a matter of utilizing the existing resources, and where there's an opportunity to use our partners in the County Veteran Service Office and the judges who are already on the payroll. This is not without cost, but we think that it is not as substantial, and that overall it will save money in terms of fewer veterans being incarcerated. So.
That would be a good thing.
Representative Grossel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry. And I apologize for the outburst of laughter there. It was not in reference to the testifier. It was reference to something that was going on in a different picture that kind of caught me off guard. So somebody's belly was showing. But anyway, I don't know if I really heard a clear answer on funds. I heard possible funds. I heard possible grants, things like that. And as far as the domestic violence advocates, do we have letters of support? Every bill that I've ever brought forward in public safety, and it had to do with CrimSex, holding those folks more accountable for their actions. I was always asked, do you have these people on board? Have you got all the stakeholders on board for this stuff? There's a reason for that, and I would like to see, do we have those things in hand? I mean, I get, with all due respect to Mr. Orpit, I've dealt with the County Attorneys Association on quite a few things. I've dealt with the Police Chiefs Association on quite a few things. And I've heard that you have the support, but everybody's always asked me, do you have a letter of support from them? Do you have someone there to testify on their behalf? So on and so forth. And from some of the things that I have been seeing and hearing from a lot of these associations, rural Minnesota is being misrepresented or unrepresented. And it is concerning that that some of these things, we're hearing that people are saying they might be in support, or you think they're in support, but we need to be able to see that. And again, I want to support our veterans. I want to take care of our veterans. I'm a veteran, and two of my children, one of my children is still active and will be active in serving. And one of my children is a veteran from a foreign war. So I want to see this thing done right. If we're going to do it, I want it done right, so that there are no gaps. There is no excess burden falling on communities that don't have resources readily available. I understand that in Hennepin, you can draw from many people in your office, but in rural Minnesota, I've got one county attorney and an assistant county attorney, and they've got to handle everything. They don't have a whole lot of resources to draw from. So it's those are just some things that I think need to be hammered out as far as moving anything forward. We all want to support our veterans, and for any of us to stand here and say that this should be a bipartisan effort. It should be, but there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, a lot of things that need to be put back in place. I understand one of the statements about where is that at? One of these statements, I'll have to find that again, but it's something, there were some inaccuracies in there. Here we go. About the Chief Justice supports. I'd like someone to confirm that accuracy. If that Chief Justice supports this stuff, let's have him on record, either testifying or a letter of support. Those are the things that we need to have, because if we're gonna throw something out there to help our veterans, it needs to be good.
Representative Grosso, Mr. Kingray from Veterans Defense Project and myself met with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. She was neutral on it, but she has been speaking at the openings of several veterans courts or county associations that have opened their veterans courts, particularly in southern Minnesota. So she has spoken at some of those events, and I understand your concerns. I will get with Mr. Orpett and Mr. Ward and talk about getting the letters of support needed from the domestic abuse groups. I understand your position, but I also will let you know that this bill's been to judiciary 5 times. And I don't think there's too many bills that have been through the Judiciary Committee that many times to deal with it. And the last time it was at Judiciary, it passed 12-0. So anyway, we'll go on. Tommy Johnson wants to be recognized. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Ecklund. And the one thing I would like to point out is the fiscal notes show savings, period. That is what it is. The second thing directed to Representative Grosso is we want to get it right too. The Veterans of Foreign Wars. This is a national legislative priority. Sometimes the pursuit of perfection stands in the way of progress, and we cannot afford to have veterans suffering mental illness waiting any longer than they already are. They need help, not incarceration. We need to get this done. As far as getting everybody on board, I've attended every committee meeting that's been, and nobody has come out in public opposition or raised the concerns that you're raising today. I would think that through the legislative process, knowing that this affects the different constituencies involved, they would show up if they had concerns. They have not shown up. We would like this bill passed as soon as possible, and our position is anybody that wants to make a technical correction is certainly able, and we encourage them to make a technical correction to this bill. But we need to take care of our veterans that are suffering mental health conditions, and we need to do it now. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
This is Mr. Ward.
I apologize. If I can just comment on two things. And Representative Grouse, I understand your concerns, but number one, the courts never comment in a letter about proposed legislation. I've never seen that in my career up here, and the reason is that they have to sit over it and someone challenges it, they're maybe concerned about bias. So no, I will tell you that there were judges that were members of this committee that talked about drafting of language, but ultimately couldn't take a stand one way or another because judges never take stands on proposed legislation. The second thing is, and I understand your concern regarding the additional resources, and I think maybe because of the site that you saw, you didn't quite hear what Mr. Johnson was saying. And what he's saying is that the use of existing money, resources in all the counties would be better accessed by the use of an implementation of this bill. When you talk about additional draws on a county attorney and part-time staff there, the case is already in the system. There is no additional work that's involved with it. And in fact, this is a tool to help address that case better than they currently have. You've heard me 1,000 times tell you I'm under-resourced. I'm in support of this and I'm under-resourced because the case is already there. It gives us a tool to address the underlying reasons why the veteran is before this court. That's the purpose of the bill. It's not about drawing additional resources. The case is there. Can we then, if this bill is signed into law, have the court and the parties recognize, is there an underlying reason as a result of being a veteran that this person is before this court? If there is, what is that reason? And if that is a reason, then can we propose and structure a probationary period and use existing and federal resources to address the underlying reasons? Right now in rural counties, and you know this as well as I do, there are limited good resources to address trauma, for instance. There are limited to good resources to address drug and alcohol addiction, for instance. There are better programs in other parts of the state. This bill tells Mr. Johnson, hey, we should be using funds that are available for the county veterans programs and use that money to help assist this person, this veteran, succeed in these probationary terms. If we don't do that, the case is still going to be there. It's still going to be the same terms and conditions or what have you. All this bill is saying is, or one of the things it's saying is recognizing, as you talked about your children serving, recognizing their service, recognizing that they've done something for this country that should be recognized above and beyond other people because of what they've done. What this also does is say, should we give veterans a second chance? And I don't think anybody in this committee would say, no, we shouldn't give them a second chance. That's step 2, give them a second chance. And number 3 is, let's use resources in the appropriate way so they never come back again. And if they complete these things, these are amazing hurdles. It was testified earlier. It's coming back weekly versus never showing up again in regular probation. Regular probation is about checking in once a month or on the wheel and the color comes up. That's all it is. If they complete their treatment or whatever and they get done, they're done. Veterans court type of issues, or this bill says the court will structure where somebody comes back every week or every 2 weeks, whatever is necessary for this person's underlying concerns. That's a hell of a lot of work for somebody to accomplish, to take advantage of this idea that they get a second chance. So it's not drawing more on the time of your folks. It's not drawing more on the time of my folks. It's addressing the underlying issues on cases that are already in the system.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Representative Detmer.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe this is just to piggyback on Representative Grossel's question is there's going to be an increase in supervision. Am I correct? Maybe Mr. Ward could answer this. And is there an increased cost there for increased supervision by the probation? So those are questions, and I think some of these questions I know Chair Ecklund was asked in the Public Safety Committee. Is there who pays for that increase in supervision?
Mr. Chair, members, yes, there would be increased supervision as you would hope, so somebody is successful. But if you look at the fiscal note for the court, they're saying there's going to be no fiscal impact on the courts whatsoever. And what it means is the person is going to need to report again or come back before the court again. And the court's saying this isn't good because they already have the calendars in place anyway. I mean, the calendars already exist. So you have another person, another calendared appointment for the individual who is a part if they're sentenced under this bill. That's what it is. Veterans Court, though, is a larger resource, right? Because ultimately you have the Veterans Court group that meets on a weekly basis. They talk about the individual cases. They determine what who's failing or in their minds or who's being successful, what the next step should be taken. That's not this bill. I mean, this bill is literally giving a tool in addition to the tools that are available for the court, the county attorney, the public defender, private counsel, and probation to use to address the underlying issues as to why a person is in the system in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Any other member questions?
Yes.
Representative Grossel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the question, the answer got brought back to the courts, but this was for probation. Those costs. Who will absorb those?
Again, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ward.
The individual, whether they're sentenced under this proposed language or not, they would be a part of the caseload of probation, whether it's the Department of Corrections, Community Corrections, or just probation. All right, they're already a part of the caseload. So the job of a probation officer is to monitor and assist for someone to succeed on probation. I hope we all agree with that, right? I am oftentimes frustrated because I feel that people are set up for failure. This particular language talks about how we can assist people to succeed on probation. So it's not an additional case on their caseload. They are already in the system. They are already a part of their caseload, so that if they need to talk to them a few times more through the year, I can't imagine that's a resource that's so out there that it can't be borne by an agency. I too, as I've said 1,000 times, am understaffed and under-resourced. I am willing to take on this obligation for the person coming back to court if it's predisposition. This is the right thing to do. This is not an onerous thing. It is providing the resources necessary, the appropriate resources, using county veterans resources to help someone so they don't come back in the system again. If you are hearing from a probation department in your district that somehow they're going to be bearing a lot of extra costs, I would like to hear what those costs are, because it's hard for me to believe that they can't bear those costs based upon the language of what this bill, again, not Veterans Court, the language of this bill that's before this committee today.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Mr. Orpett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Grossel, I totally agree with Mr. Ward on this. You've already got an offender who's going to be on probation. But in practice and in reality, once that veteran accesses the VA Veterans Justice Outreach, they get assigned an outreach coordinator who acts really typically as a probation agent, in the sense that they make sure these folks make their appointments, make their groups, make their treatment initiatives, help them through that whole thing. So you have a probation agent in Washington County who gets assigned my cases very frequently, but her position really is, once they get into the VA treatment system, she doesn't have a lot to supervise, because a veteran is being supervised. And when we find them missing appointments, it's not the age of the probation agent, it's the Veterans Justice Outreach Coordinator who will call me, and I will schedule a hearing. I see it having very little impact. If anything, I think your probation agents would say these are the easiest guys and gals to supervise.
Thank you, Mr. Orpett. Representative Brand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to be on the record by saying a couple of things because I've just been, you know, such a big supporter of this since 2019 when we had this conversation. I think it was in February of 2019. You know, we heard Tony Miller and Marko Milosevic talk about the difference between what happened in their circumstances. One got a felony, the other got restorative justice. And when you carry around a felony, you're not able to do the same kinds of things as other people can do. It's very difficult to rent a home. It's very difficult to get a good paying job. It's very difficult to become a member of society and do the things like vote and really have a stake in being a citizen in this country. And so I was really proud of the fact that we passed this legislation last year in the House. I was really disappointed with the other body not actually taking this up in the conference committee last year in the omnibus bill. But since that point, since May of 2019 until the end of session in May of 2020, the other body didn't actually hear the bill at all once. They never heard the bill. And so we're working with a body who obviously does not want to do things in my opinion, in the vein of actually helping people across the state of Minnesota. They didn't show up. Not once did they hear the bill. I believe it was in 2019, their concerns were, well, we never heard the bill, so we don't really know what it is. In 2020, they never heard the bill either, so they obviously didn't care. And that shows. A lot of people in Minnesota have told me that of their disappointment that this bill did not go further in the other body. For us to hear this bill again this time around and to hear these different questions being raised that weren't raised in 2019 is a little bit concerning to me. I feel like some of the conversation that we're having now is some of the conversation we didn't have in 2019 when I think we were starting the biennium in a more bipartisan vein. I truly think that's disappointing. I believe there are a lot of people watching in Minnesota right now, and I believe there are a lot of people that are watching in Minnesota that have veterans that are family members. And those veterans have gone through hell, and they come back to the state, come back to Minnesota, and want to start a life. They want to start a business or a job, and things go wrong for them sometimes. And for a state government not to be there in the times where they absolutely are needed, for having these types of programs in place for them to get back on track, it's just an absolute disappointment. And I want to see this get passed. And I want to get passed bipartisan. This should be something that we can all support. Either they go to prison or they become productive members of society. But either way we do it, they're going to be in the system. But we know that this will actually reduce the cost in counties and at the state level going through the criminal justice system. And so I wholly support this bill. I know a lot of people back in my district have emailed and called and written to me and said, Jeff, thank you for supporting this. It's really disappointing to see all the red votes in the Senate last special session. You know, there were comments made about Chief Justice Gilday today. The same comments were made by about Chief Justice Gilday back in July in the other body when they're having this discussion on the floor. I think Chief Justice Gilday has an opportunity to say anything at any time about this. And if it's going to cost her courts more money, if it's going to cost the state of Minnesota more money, that's why we're elected. And we will have a financial obligation next year and in every biennium to make sure that this is funded or not, depending on the circumstances and who's elected and who's in leadership. But I truly believe this legislation needs to be passed out of this committee at some point. It needs to be passed out of the House at some point, and it needs to get to the governor's desk at some point. If not now, when? If we don't stand for something, at some point we have to realize that we don't stand for anything. This is something that we can all clearly stand for. So that's all I wanted to say today. Thank you.
Representative Brad, thank you. Mr. Milosevic, did you join? Representative Grossel.
Representative Detmer was up before I was. I'll let him go first.
I didn't see his hand. Representative Detmer.
No, I appreciate Representative Brand's comments. You know, the one thing we have to realize, you know, I'm just finishing my 7th term in the legislature. I've served every year. I've served on the Veterans Committee, whether the lead or the chair. And I've learned over the years that you got to be able to work across the aisle. You got to be able to work and not point fingers or blame people and so forth. And I think we're making a mistake of maybe just blaming the Senate. I think we need to just concentrate on what we're doing in the House first, and then you know, walk across the aisle and build those relationships with the people in the Senate. You know, it took us how many years to get rid of the tax on the veterans' pensions? I mean, it took years. I worked on it for 10 years, and I know we finally accomplished that. But you know, we need to, you know, get it to the House floor again. You know, we didn't get it to the House floor this year for a vote. It got hung up. So I think you got to work across the aisle. You got to work with people, build relationships. And I think, I don't know if Mr. Ward testified in committee in public affairs, but you have a good testimony explaining what the bill does and doesn't do. I think that's important because, you know, we're hit with a lot of questions about this and that and that, and that's important. I think Chair Ecklund's got frustrated with the whole process this session, and I think a lot of people were. But you know, I've kept my name on there as a co-author, because I think we're doing some good things for veterans in the state, and I think the Department of Veterans Affairs have been very active in supporting and communicating with the legislature. I think Ben Johnson has spent a lot of time in people's offices talking about the goals that the Department of Veterans Affairs has. The commissioner has been very active. So I think we just need to keep working on building relationships.
Thank you, Representative Detmer. Representative Grossel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as far as any comments about the Chief Justice, it was trying to make sure that we had an accurate standing on where the Chief Justice stood. No derogatory comments, just wanting accuracy. And those are the comments about the Chief Justice. I will ask another question, however, if I may. The chemical dependency treatment program takes 18 months on average to complete. In addition to felonies, this bill allows offenders committing misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor offenses where the maximum sentence is not more than 12 months in the local jail to be given diversion. What happens if an offender is still in treatment when the time runs out on the sentence? I want to address that, please.
Mr. Orpett or Mr. Ward, do you have an answer for that question?
Mr. Chair, the VA has a number of services that I think are pretty narrowly tailored to each one of these. They have a general chemical dependency program. That's the inpatient program in St. Cloud. They offer a number of other alternatives, outpatient programs. Sometimes those programs involve domestic abuse along with the chemical dependency treatment, so it's kind of a blended treatment. Other times it's PTSD along with the chemical dependency treatment. I don't think they have a one-size-fits-all program in chemical dependency for the veterans, but I do know that that is a common thread among many, many veterans that we see through our courts and that the VA sees as well. And I think they've been very responsive in tailoring the treatment needs to the individuals. They're also getting a number of opioid addicts. That's a whole different kind of treatment than your typical alcohol treatment. And they've developed programming to address that too. But they have a myriad of programs, which is another great asset for us counties to get. Typically, Rule 25 money pays for one treatment center that has one way of conducting business, and it's expensive. In these cases, the VA picks it up and they tailor the treatment, and I think they have a far greater success rate than the public at large. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Bill Ward.
Mr. Ward.
Two things. Number one, if you look at existing specialty courts, in addition to everything Pete has said or Mr. Orpert has said, the court extends the probation for what they deem as appropriate based upon the circumstances of the underlying charge. And ultimately, the same thing would occur with the implementation of a bill like this. The other thing on gross misdemeanors, as everyone knows, you can ask for an extension of the probationary period. The reality is that on your typical misdemeanor probation, there are very little hurdles to overcome. There are a few conditions that are ordered by the court. Under this bill, to truly address the underlying issues, there will be additional conditions. If a person wants to participate, again, they would want to participate and need to participate in this, they would accept what the court is going to order in order to fulfill the conditions of probation, including longer-term treatment. But I agree with Mr. Orpet. I think we need to get away from this one-size-fits-all mentality. It simply is not true. When I was younger, all treatment was 30 days, and it didn't take that long for us to figure out the reason treatment was 30 days inpatient is because that's all the insurance companies would pay for. So let's, the Veterans Administration and truly good counselors know what's necessary for the individual. So it's not going to be, hey, in 3 months you're done, let's move on. It's going to be assessed. The individual is going to be assessed, and the treatment is going to be applied for the right person based upon the underlying circumstances.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Well, members, we're running close up to our Zoom time. As you know, sometimes we lose the link or whatever this thing is that we're on. So I don't see any other members' hands raised. So I will close this out.
Mr. Chair?
Representative Grosso, quickly, please.
He may have answered that question, but does the bill allow a judge to mandate completion of treatment, even if it takes longer than the criminal sentence? And that, again, these are special circumstances. We want to take care of our veterans, make sure that if there's treatment prescribed, can they mandate it so that they get it completed, so that they get the full effect of their treatment? And they mandate completion even if it takes longer than the sentence.
Mr. Orpet.
Unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Grosso. I believe they can. Typically what we see on a misdemeanor level is 2 years of probation. And the folks in my veterans program are very, very rarely in even that long, frankly. We try to address their issues right away. And after the year, typically a year of programming, sometimes longer, especially for some of our opioid addict veterans, we can keep them in the program as long as we want, but it's never more than 2 years, practically. Even if they were given a 5-year stay, if we don't address it within the first year, we're probably not getting through. And that's how we view it. So, there are no programs that last several years other than some outpatient PTSD programs. But once they're done with my program, I urge them to continue the programming they do. But I'm not going to drag them into jail if they don't.
Mr. Chair, could I make one more comment to you? Thank you,
Mr. Orpet. Representative Grosso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Orpet. You said this, that the bill made 5 trips to judicial. And those 5 trips, I have to say that when we're throwing legislation through, we need to minimize how many trips that we're making through these committees. And I believe that most of the time, you don't want to have to come under their scrutiny too many times. So we try to make sure that we do it right the first time. Now, with that being said, more of these questions. You want these. I've heard all the testifiers say, if people have questions, we want them asked. Well, we're asking questions today, and to me, people are getting frustrated with these questions, but they're legitimate questions and concerns that need to be addressed. So I appreciate you bringing this forward for this conversation. And again, everybody sitting on this committee wants to work together, wants to make sure that we are taking care of our veterans and taking the best care possible. Get them the representation, get them to be held a little higher esteem than just any Joe off the street. They've earned that. And I think they've earned also from us to put forward the best piece of legislation possible so that we can come at this and help them with all their issues that they may be going through without fumbling around, without having it being something that is something that's a mess that's really not going to help them at all. So, I mean, I want to help with putting this thing together the best way we can. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative Grossel. Well, members, this has been an interesting discussion. And first off, I'm not frustrated. I don't get frustrated. I just get things done. Okay. So I'll start off with that. Second off, I don't know if there's implications that I don't work across the aisle, but I think I have a pretty good reputation of working across the aisle on many things other than veteran stuff besides. All right. So I just want to make that clear. And I think I see a couple of you nodding your head. So that's, I see that. So this is a good proposal. I don't view taking it to judiciary 5 times as a bad thing. We addressed people's concerns each time. After we came back from judiciary, I asked 3 of my colleagues that are prosecutors to take a look at my bill and tell me what was wrong with it. I fixed that. 2 of them are on the Judiciary Committee. We fixed that with their concerns. After another trip to judiciary, I asked Mr. Diebel to take a look at it as our nonpartisan analyst, and he took a look at it, and thank you very much. He came up with some things, and then we went back and addressed that concern. This was over a 2-year period. It wasn't just in 1 year that we were at judiciary 5 times. So I look at it as making it right, not taking a mess, as Representative Grossel said, and throwing it on the floor. That didn't happen. This bill was on the General Register in 2019. It was part of our proposal in the State Government Finance Conference Committee, and it did not pass because the other body didn't support it. Last week in the other body, they heard this bill on the floor, and one of the senators came up with a $2 million cost that no one has been able to find. And so that is why I decided to bring this back and show that this is a savings to the state. It can be a savings to the state. And, you know, we send our young men and women when they volunteer for the service overseas. They come back sometimes broken, physically or psychologically. And we owe it as citizens of Minnesota to do what we can to fix these problems that happen because of their service to our great country. And to do any less to me is just unacceptable. So it's my view and the view of the DFL caucus that this bill needs to become law and that our veterans know that the state of Minnesota has it. Thank you, members, for your patience. I appreciate the time today and I appreciate the input. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.